This week on Barbell Shrugged, we interview a man that's been training and lifting for 61 years, Dr. Fred Bisci.
Barbell Shrugged is brought to you by you. To learn more about how you can support the show, go to barbellshrugged.com and sign up for the newsletter. To have a good time.
That's all right.
Welcome to Barbell Shrugged. I'm Mike Bledsoe with Doug Larson, Chris Moore, and CTP behind the camera. We are in beautiful Vermont, hanging out on Joe DeSena's place. I don't even know what we're doing up here anymore.
We're just having a good time, man.
We're hanging out here with Dr. Fred Bisci.
That's it.
Yeah, I got the name right. I'm pretty excited about that. We were hanging around, and Joe said we need to hang out with you a little bit, and we started learning a little bit about your history. And we're like, this guy
Well, he didn't say it like that.
amazing.
He said, you have to meet this man.
Yeah.
That's what he said.
What did he say? What I said?
He said, you have to. He said, yeah, come on up, maybe you'll never. No, he said, do it. Just trust me. Do it.
Well, I think he was talking to Doug, so I don't know exactly what happened. I'm just making up stories at this point.
So we got to talk to him.
Yeah.
You've been in the game for a long time. You have quite a history. On your note, you said he has quite a history. Like, you have more history than anyone I know in the strength conditioning world.
Well, I've been at this. I started working out with the weights when I was about 14 years old, and I'll be 85 years old in 10 days. So
we were feeling like we had been in the game for a while.
I'm like, yeah, I've been training for like 17 years. You're like, it's been like 60 something years.
I've got like 22. How long have you been in the game, Doug?
16.
Yeah, so we feel.
well, I'm
17.
a little different. I'm a little different. What happened? I was really, I was really excited about working out with the weights, and I trained very, very hard. I was explaining to him. I devised a way of training I called the overload system, and for the days that I lifted weights, it made me very, very strong. So I used a special power rack that I built. And he actually trained in an old barn. We dug a hole in the floor, so I used to stand in the hole and do. You heard about?
Yes.
Do deadlifts out of the hole, and we used to do partial deadlifts with 600 to 700 pounds. And when I was 17 years old, I was 200 pounds already. So training very, very hard. Then we had a power rack. We'd hold things over our head. Just take it that much out of the power rack, much more than you could jerk. Everything I did was to build tendons, not only muscle strength, but with tendon strength. And I used to train to exhaustion. Then I would not train again for another 5 or 6 days because that's how long it actually took.
Do you mind if we go back and get notepads and shit so we can write down? Because these are great. These are great old.
Well, this is what's amazing is what you're describing right now is people use these methods.
And like call it cutting edge.
But they'll say this is new. There's a new thing that came up with.
No.
It's like because they're using. We now have racks that are built to where you can do exactly what you're describing. What's interesting is like someone goes, I don't have the proper equipment. It's like, have you tried digging a hole yet?
Well, that's what Paul.
Well, you want to really laugh. Some of the weights we used to use, they used to come from the old railroad crossings. They were counterweights. Some of them were this thick. And they weighed like 250 pounds, so to bring up the railroad crossing. So we used to actually take them when we were kids. So we had the most primitive setup in that barn that you ever saw. But we used to train. There was a group of us. We used to train like crazy, and we had a weightlifting club called the Dongan Hills Barbell Club, and we always competed at a higher level. I mean, we were poor immigrant kids. We used to come into a meet, and we used to look like a bunch of ragamuffins, but we always... I'm telling you, we always placed, We always did.
Did you ever happen to train with Paul Anderson? Because he used that same hole-in-the-ground technique for squats and good morning.
Paul Anderson?
Yeah.
I knew Paul Anderson when he was the heavyweight champion of the world.
Good Lord.
He worked with...
Sir, that's an honor.
York Barbell Club.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Paul was really a great guy. And
for those that don't know, Paul Anderson's generally regarded, I guess, as the strongest man in modern history.
He did a squat. He could squat with over 1,000 pounds. I don't know exactly how much.
He did it like every day for a long time,
Yeah,
just for show.
So for the record,
he was enormous.
Is this the 50s, sir? When was Paul on his peak? I can't remember the exact day.
Let me think a minute. Yeah, I think it was more in the 60s. It was
60s.
after the Korean
So
War.
Paul, he was rumored to have squatted a close like 1,100. I mean, the conditions are. It's hard to say, depth and all this stuff, but he could put it on his back. He could do amazing feats of strength. The back lift was my favorite one he used to do. He'd lift up like a whole audience on his back.
He was. First of all, he couldn't. His legs were so big he couldn't go down below parallel. It was impossible. So he could just barely squat down to parallel. He could do a push press with over 500 pounds, maybe like 500. I don't remember the exact numbers, but he used to just a slight dip, and he used to push it over his head.
Yeah, this is the days when Olympic weightlifters were some of the best. They were the best pressers in the world.
Yeah, absolutely. Right? Yeah, and the only thing about Paul is that he used to use Knox gelatin as a protein supplement, and that's not really a good thing to do.
Wait, what is that stuff?
Knox gelatin. They make when you go to the
you make Jello out of it.
Make Jello out of it, and I think that
what's funny. My wife just
what was in it?
It was
gelatin.
It was made from the bones of diseased animals and all kinds of stuff. It really wasn't a good idea.
It's collagen, basically?
Collagen based. And a box cost maybe like, in those days, 15 cents, I guess, So he ended up a sick guy.
What's that in today's
He ended up getting
dollars?
sick from it? Is that what you said?
Huh?
He ended up getting sick? Is that what you said?
Yeah, he ended up with very bad diabetes, and he didn't live to be a ripe old age.
Is that from the gelatin or just because he was an enormous guy?
I think the gelatin had something to do with him getting sick, and then, of course, he was, I forget what he weighed, about 340 pounds. He developed diabetes,
And it wasn't like they were watching their, all their levels of vitamin D or omega fatty acids at this point. They're just eating whatever they can find, and then you live a hard life. In those days, what people did was, there was nothing to sit down and eat a couple dozen eggs and eat, 10 hamburgers and a bunch of French fries and drink everything, go out and drink a quart of beer, and they ate everything just to pack on the muscle, And there was some strong guys.
They drank beer for recovery.
Yeah, they a lot of guys.
We've experimented with this method, Doctor, and it can be quite beneficial sometimes.
Yeah,
when you're in your 20s, maybe.
I know what you're saying.
So legend has it, speaking of digging holes in the ground, that
listen,
Paul would...
Listen, what we got to remember here
Never mind.
is what's optimal for strength and size, right, is not optimal for longevity. What's optimal for health, it might not be the most conducive thing to be a big guy, a strong guy. But you can be strong and, eat a very, very good diet. And you can be well built, too. So I think the answer is really for young guys today that want to have, massive builds. Is the middle of the road is to try to give up if you can give up the processed food, whatever you eat, most likely you're going to be a very healthy person, because what's killing people today is the processed food. The processed food is absolutely a modern-day curse, because I see it in what I do. I've been a clinical nutritionist now for 50 years, and I'm a PhD in nutritional science, and I see a lot of people today are getting cancer and getting really, really
You've observed the rise of this firsthand. You've seen every stage.
I saw when they started using growth hormones like Dianabol. I saw guys, they were eating that like candy, and they got so big so fast, and then they started bleeding from their nose and their rectum, and they were having no...
You've taken too much D-ball when you bleed from your rectum.
That's steroids for anyone that doesn't know that Dianabol is a steroid.
Yeah, it was a steroid.
Yeah.
And there was, and...
Yeah, if you start bleeding from the anus in a squat session, you have overdone the drugs.
And they were eating massive amounts of cheap quality protein, real lousy stuff,
But like powder proteins that were just bad
no,
quality?
they were, all kinds of, ribs, and not that there's anything, they're bad, but a lot of these guys just ate, the food was so processed. If you ate like grass-fed beef and organically grown chickens, you ate the amount of protein that they ate, you probably would be okay. It wouldn't be a problem. And then they didn't eat enough vegetables. They weren't getting enough minerals. They weren't getting enough of a lot of the nutrients that people are well aware of today, what you need to be a healthy person.
They were just worried about the protein. They weren't
They were
worried
just
about
worried about the
anything
protein.
else.
They're just worried about being strong. Well, to be perfectly honest, what they were worried about is being massive, having 19-inch arms, being able to, squat with 500 pounds. And, of course, when you're eating that type of diet, you had the libido of a Mongolian warrior. So that's what they were really focusing on.
CTP, bookmark this part of the interview. We're going to put that on a
Mongolian
shirt.
warrior.
That's what they were really after. And, you know, that happens. Listen, when you're a young guy, you're 21 years old, and you're all souped up, and you're walking down the street like a praying lion, it comes from that type of a diet, too. You know, we got to be honest here.
We're all sitting here like we have no idea
Did
what
you
you're talking
have
about.
There's nothing wrong with that.
No idea.
Never been there.
I don't think I
Never
had
been
as good of a game as you. I don't think I ever felt like a praying lion picking up the chicks. I wasn't trying hard enough, man.
Oh, I was trying hard enough. Striking out a lot. Trying really
Trying and
hard.
failing.
You know what I think is important today for guys that are lifting weights. What I found over the years, what I've been doing, I think a lot of people are missing the boat, or they don't fully understand detox. I think everybody should be detoxing periodically, because our environment, we're swimming through a pool, a very toxic environment. What's even some of the chemicals on our grass or in our carpets when you buy a new car, in your house, what's in the air, there's all kinds of problems going on. And I think a lot of people don't realize what happens, even if you're eating a healthy diet, that you should be detoxing maybe 2 or 3 times a year. If you could just do like a 7-day juice fast and cleanse your bowels, because I believe that I see a lot of people that have cancer, and I believe that our cancer is beginning in our GI tract, upper and lower GI tract, especially your upper GI tract, which a lot of people don't focus on, and your lymphatic system. Your lymphatic system is like the septic tank outside your house. That's why a lot of people have problems with their lymph nodes when they have cancer, they have swollen lymph nodes, because their lymph system is just being overwhelmed. And your lymph system doesn't have a pump like a heart that circulates your blood. I'm sure you guys, the way you work out, that your lymph system is constantly
Pristine, doctor.
Huh?
Pristine.
It should be, right?
If you're eating healthy all the time, do you still think that's something you need to do? If you're eating like really clean all the time?
Absolutely. I do it, and I eat what I think is a very, very healthy diet. I'm pretty sure it is. But
You eat a lot of raw foods, is that correct these days?
I do, right.
Mm-hmm.
But what's in the problem is that what you're not consuming yourself, what you're breathing, what you're exposed to.
It's not just what you're eating. There's environmental.
Yeah,
toxins.
but heavy metals. I bet that everybody got tested here would probably find some heavy metals in your system. It's almost impossible.
Mostly gold for me.
Mostly gold.
Yeah, Michael's been drinking.
This guy's made of gold.
Michael, this guy got a bottle.
Don't tell
I'm
people
gonna tell him. No, fuck you. I'm telling. He's got a bottle of gold liquid that an alchemist gave him. And he puts it on our tongues. I'm not gonna tell you what this is. Try this, and your mouth fills up with a very bizarre metal flavor. And he goes. He said he dosed me with something else. I got excited, but he said, "I got this from an alchemist. It'll make your body work better." And Doug and I were very confused by his statement.
Well, there's a lot of alchemists,
By the way,
alchemists.
it was kind of joking.
I know, but you looked very
Well,
serious.
a lot of people are serious. A lot of alchemists are serious about that.
No. I mean, I there might be something to it. That's the thing. Is like I'm like, all right, well, I'll try it. You know what I mean? Like, I couldn't find any research on it at all. So I'm like, I'll try it.
That's a silly modern thing. I'd be curious to see some of the things you are now seeing in the modern strength community and modern fitness community that you find to be a little bit ridiculous based on your extensive experience. Like, what are we doing now that you've seen us make these mistakes before? Any modern trends, any kind of equipment that you're looking at, you say, man, they should just go back to the barn,
Well, I'm not the most knowledgeable guy about the new equipment that's out there, because I haven't been in the gym in a long time. And probably, I'd say a long time, maybe about 10 years. But I still was training up into my 70s, and I don't remember when, I don't remember exact specific dates, but when I was in my 70s, I was still able to do 3 sets of 10 in the squats, down to parallel with 300 pounds. So you can be thin. I'm very thin. I'm well aware of that. But you can be thin and be very strong.
Absolutely.
And based on the type of diet I follow, it keeps you very, very thin, keeps your arteries clean. But I'm also into Qigong, the martial arts, and the breathing. I think everybody should be doing some type of exercise, no matter what you do, like Qigong, because of the breathing, how It's the most revitalizing form of.
That's the name of the breathing exercise, or that's the name of the martial art.
Qigong is a form of martial arts, but what I do is the exercise. It's the breathing. It's similar to Tai Chi, with this very slow movement, and where you're breathing. And Rory's been doing it for 16 years. He's a very strong guy. You'd be surprised how strong he is.
Breathing plays a huge factor, and being able to. I mean, if you're doing something, even like say a CrossFit workout or something like that, guys that are
breathing
is very
breathing
in between sets and stuff like that.
Absolutely.
That's all your recovery right there. I want to ask you first off, what were your thoughts on Alchemist? Because you started saying something about Alchemist.
No, I think. Listen, I'm not a dogmatic guy. I'm very open-minded. I've seen some alchemists do some pretty amazing things. I'm not a specialist in that type of thing.
My exposure to Alchemist is like zero. Like my buddy was like, "Check this out, guys, from the Alchemist." I'm like, I'm gonna screw with my friends. I'm gonna try it out myself.
I'm not taking that. That's what I would have told.
Well, I'll tell you something. There's a much better way to approach it that's scientifically proven. So I don't put anybody down. And I'm not a dogmatic guy. At this point in my life, I told you I'm 85. I'm still learning every single day. So the key is. Nobody knows everything, and actually, to be honest with you, the older I get, the more I've learned, the more I realize I don't know very much, because there's so much knowledge in the world, and I try to learn from everybody. I know I'm learning just by speaking to you guys, because I could see that you're very good at what you do, and this is an opportunity for me to learn something, and maybe hopefully I'm going to be able to, you can learn from my experience. But what happened to me is that when I started eating a raw diet, which at one time, this is about 50 years ago, there were some people that were talking about eating a diet that was 100% raw. Being that I was traditionally trained and I was, 200 pounds, I thought that was ridiculous, because the guy I was speaking to me, he was a very thin guy, but I watched him. He was amazingly strong. He had great endurance. And I'm saying, this guy must have something here. But looking at him visually, it wasn't very appealing to me, because I thought he was too thin. He was thinner than I am, you know. So I kept thinking about it, and I did a little bit of research. There wasn't a lot of information around. There was no computers around. So I decided the only way I could find out, I could start, doing the kind of research by reading books. And there was the information that came from Germany by Dr. Ragnar, who was a Nobel Peace Prize in biochemistry. And he had fasted probably 40,000 people in fasting retreats, and Otto Buchinger, and then Dr. Carl Otto Ali. And if you look up the Stockholm Fast March, there were 11 guys that drank water for 10 days and walked 333 miles. So I said, how can anybody do that? Not eat.
We would say the same thing, like, oh.
Well, look it up go on the internet. So I said, the only way I could find out how much validity to this is for me to do my own. Being I had a clinical background, to do my own experimentation, in which I did. I started right from the beginning. I did all the water fasting. I lived on juices. I did a lot of, it's not truly a fast. I lived on juices for many times over 100 days. Found myself to be fully functional. You'd be surprised what you could really do, because my body was trained from eating a raw type of a diet. Then I had my own television show called Eat Your Way to Health with Dr. Fred Bisci, won a Nova Award. So we used to have a lot of people on it, guys that lifted weights and doctors. We had a lot of healthy discussions, not arguments, and we were going back and forth. And people learned from that. So at one time, Dick Gregory, I don't know if you ever heard of Dick Gregory, he was a political activist. And he had fasted 57 days on water and walked and ran 100 miles. So people said it was impossible. So it wasn't impossible, because I had done similar things. And while I was in a health food store, and some guy said, I don't believe that. I don't believe it's possible. He said, I'd like to see you do something like that. I said, well, I'm not going to go on a long fast, but I will fast 10 days, and then we can go to Clove Lake Park and see how far I could run. So that's what we did. I fasted for 10 days. They had to believe I did it, but I really did do it. People know that knew me. And we went to Clove Lake Park, and I ran 10 miles through the hills. So you can do unbelievable things, you know what I'm saying? And we're all very unique individuals, and we can only evaluate something on our own experience. Now, when I was lifting weights and going through what I was going, I thought that was insanity. I didn't think anybody could really do that until I started doing it myself. I lost, over a period of about a year, I lost 70 pounds. I went from over 200 pounds. I did a lot of long-term fasting. And then I thought I shot myself in the foot. I thought I was made a tremendous mistake. But then as my body became more biologically efficient, I started to work out again. I started to put on some muscle. And I actually got to the point where I looked reasonably well also.
Mm-hmm.
But I found out I was dramatically more healthy. I had unbelievable. One thing is when you do that type of a diet and you're getting enough carbs and you're not eating the amount of protein, that's one of the reasons why you're not getting bigger, you know. You have unbelievable endurance. So that's when I did a lot of endurance work. And I kind of made a major mistake. And later on at that time, I believe it was a major mistake for me. I kind of drifted away from resistance training, and I got into the long-distance running, and I ran, 2 ultra marathons, 2 50-mile races, and 18 marathons. And I ran through the prevention marathon, which was below zero. I had very bad frostbite. But you know what? How I look at that now, I look at that as being temporary insanity. There was no real, what was to prove. So I learned from all that, and then as the years went on, as working as a clinical nutritionist, I ran into a lot of people from different walks of life with different diseases.
Mm-hmm.
I worked with one guy that was come in second in Mr. Universe, 280 pounds at 6'5" with at least 21-inch arms, enormous guy. But he ran into severe problems from growth hormone, steroids,
mm-hmm.
and I couldn't convince him that he had to really readjust what he was doing through his diet, and he could actually come back. But he tried it, and he lost about 15 pounds, and he said he couldn't afford to lose that much weight because, this guy would have still looked enormous,
Right.
Sounds like what you're describing a lot of people will create these mental barriers and assumptions of what they can do, what they can't do.
Yeah, that's true.
And what they have to eat and how big they must be.
Right.
I'm really fascinated by what you're saying because I myself am eating. I'm not trying to follow any kind of restriction, but I find myself just not wanting a lot of the food I used to. I won't really eat much breakfast until 10 or 11.
Yeah, that's fine. You can do that.
I've started realizing if I don't want food, I won't eat it. And if I want to train light, I will. And I want to go heavy, I will. If I want to run around or swim, I will. And one thing I'm starting to see in my trainings, I'm getting stronger than I've been in
absolutely
probably the last 3 years, and I'm getting smaller and smaller. You're kind of blowing my mind a little bit with some of this shit.
No,
I'll be honest with you, doctor.
Well, what happens, you're becoming more biologically efficient. So you can actually lose some weight, become more biologically efficient. There's a certain cutoff point. If you go, you're a big guy.
I'm a beast, yeah.
So if you went down, say you lost 40 pounds, I doubt if you're going to be as strong as you are. You never know, though, because it was hard for people to believe that when I first lost weight and people that knew me, they thought I was out of my mind. They thought something happened to me, and I got sick or something like that.
Are you okay? Are you sick, doctor?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, But I found out you can be very, very strong if you try to follow the same type of diet and you give up the processed food, you're going to become denser. You'll look more ripped. But there's a very good chance you might be a little bit stronger than you are now, because I ran into one guy that followed this type of diet and that was here today, and he said he actually got stronger, but he didn't have the discipline to stay with it. So you have to try for yourself,
Yeah.
Don't do anything that's, you're smart guy, you're intelligent guys, you got a great background in doing this. Maybe by, cleaning your chemistry up a little bit, you might see a difference,
Technically, I've seen my chemistry up quite a bit. I used to be 100 pounds heavier.
Let's take a break real quick. There's a few things I want to touch on when we get back. I want to talk about raw diet, what detox actually is, and then also I want to talk about your weightlifting experience when you were younger. Yeah.
Oh, yeah, all right.
All right, welcome back to Technique Quad. Today we're talking about rowing. Okay, so I like rowing for a couple of reasons. A few of the basics. It's a super conservative way to train. If you're brand new to training and you want to be able to just do some monostructural cardio, you could go for a run or something like that. You could do some air dying, you could row. Air dying, rowing, those are probably much more conservative than even just going for a jog. You're less likely to trip and fall, sprain your ankle, get knee pain after a couple of weeks, et cetera, et cetera. So,
Hit by a car.
Get hit by a car. So it's a nice conservative way to get started if you are brand new to training, and especially if you have lower body joint pain. And, number 2, especially for advanced athletes, I like it because it doesn't have a lot of stability demands, and it's not exactly self-limiting. Self-limiting would be things like double unders. You get tired on double unders and then you start missing, and then you have to take a break because you missed. Well, on rowing, there's no real opportunity to miss. You could take a break whenever you wanted to, but you can kind of just keep grinding it out even if your intensity keeps going down, just because you're not going to fall off of it. And if you quit, then you have to mentally actually stop moving. You're not going to miss like you do on double unders and have to take a break. So I like it for that reason, because it has no stability demands, and it's not self-limiting. You can really dig yourself into a very deep metabolic hole where you're breathing really heavy, your heart rate is up really, really high, and you can do some very hard intervals, and that's great training for your cardiovascular system, but it's not going to make you very sore at the same time, because all the movements are concentric only, which basically means that you pull, and then on the way down, there's no resistance. So there's no resistance for your arms, and there's no resistance for your legs as you cycle back and recover from your pull. And then since there's no eccentric to the movement, and there's no resistance on the way back from your pull on the recovery portion, it's not going to make you very sore. So you can do a lot of hard intervals and not really get very sore in the process, at least if you're in moderately good shape. If you're brand spanking new, you've never done anything, then maybe you get sore like the first time. But it's not going to make you very sore, so you can do it a lot, and you can do a recovery row, and it's not going to beat up your muscles or your joints that much. It's a very conservative way to train. So I like it for that reason. Basics on technique. First thing, and actually since these are totally out of place for me, I'll show you that too. As far as the straps go, you want to put them basically right over where your toes meet your feet. So for me, that's about right there. That might even be a little bit much for me. Yeah, about right there. That way, if my heel does come off the ground, this goes right over where my toes meet my foot, and so it can stay down. It's not pulling on my actual foot. All right, so first, basically all good weightlifting technique or any movement technique basically centers around having good posture. So especially when you're sitting, which is where people tend to think about good posture, you want to be right about here, okay? My heels are, for the most part, down. My knee is bent about 90 degrees. I'm sitting up nice and tall. My arms are straight. And then basics, I'm going to drive through my heels until my legs get straight. Then I'm going to pull with my arms. And then the exact opposite. My arms go forward, and then my knees kind of stick back through my arms. Okay, so it's always sitting nice and tall. I'm always legs, arms, arms, legs. Driving through my heels. Legs, arms, arms, legs. So that's the basics. A few things that people do wrong, starting with my feet. A lot of people, they'll come too far forward. Instead of getting to about right here or so, they'll come forward and they'll bring their heels up and they'll kind of bounce the seat off of their heels like this. And they'll even reach forward like that, and then they'll give it like this big long pull. Okay, like really, really extreme like this. Okay, you don't need your pull to be quite that long. Sure, you definitely want as long of a pull as you can with good technique, but you don't need to max out your range of motion by going into bad technique. It'd be like rounding your back on squatting and picking your heels up off the ground just to make the bar move further, even though you're doing the whole thing completely wrong. So you don't want to do that on rowing either. You do want to go forward with straight arms, just right until your heels start to come up. They don't need to come up like that, but just my heels are down here. They're going to come up a tiny bit, and I can lean forward, and then I get right here. My heels are down now. I can drive through my heels until my legs are straight, and then I can pull with my arms. All right, point number 2, a lot of people bend their elbows too early. So if I'm here and I'm driving, I don't want to bend my arms before my knees are straight. I always want to have my legs go straight and then my arms finish the pull. I never want to get here and then pull with my arms before my legs are straight. That'd be like doing a deadlift where you're bending your elbows before your knees are, basically straight. You shouldn't bend your elbows at all on a deadlift. You should keep your arms all the way locked out straight. That way you can use the strength from your legs and the rest of your body, and your arms don't become your limiter. If you bend your elbows, well, now the strength that I have to keep my elbow bent becomes my limiter, as opposed to my my straight arm and my legs becoming my limiter, okay? So I'm always stronger with straight arms, so I want to use everything I can from my legs and my back, and then finish with my arms, go back to straight, and then I can come back forward, okay? So that's point number 2. You always want to have straight arms as long as possible, just like you would on a deadlift and just like you would on a snatch or a clean and jerk. Point number 3, I want to sit up nice and tall. So if I'm here, I never want to be slouched or slumped over. I never want to be here. I see a lot of people, they shrug and they kind of pull. They usually don't even make it all the way to their chest. Not that you need to bang it into your chest, but you at least need to get semi-close. So I don't want to be slumped over. I want to sit up nice and tall, good posture. So I'm here and I'm not rounded. If I round over, I'm going to get more back problems. It's going to hurt my low back especially. I'm going to get more shoulder problems because I'm going to destabilize and roll forward like this. And then when I pull, it's hard for me to pull my shoulder blades together if I'm all rounded over. So I want to sit up nice and tall. That way when I go to pull, my shoulder blades can move back. Okay, my shoulder blades need to come back, and then my elbows come back, and my elbows stay in. I don't want to come with my shoulders forward and my elbows out like this with a round back. I want to be nice and tall, shoulders back, elbows down and sucked in, and then I can come forward and come out like that. So that goes for any time you do any type of rowing, whether it's on a rower, whether you're doing any type of horizontal pulling, which a lot of people call rows, whether you're doing like a bent over barbell row or a ring row. I'm going to pull here, and I never want to be slumped over pulling like this, okay? That's bad technique no matter what you're pulling on, the rower included, okay? So I want to have nice, tall posture at all times. One more quick point about sitting up nice and tall. When I'm sitting up nice and tall with a straight neutral spine, which that's a good term for rowing as well, even though you mostly hear it with respect to deadlift, squats, in Olympic weightlifting, snatches, cleans, and whatnot. I want to have a nice, tall, neutral spine here, and then I still always want to pivot at my hip. I don't want to flex and extend at my back. That's a universal movement law, if you will, okay? So when I come forward, if I'm here, as I come forward, and I want to reach a little bit, I don't want to round to get more range of motion, okay? A lot of people, they'll round here, and then they'll pull and they'll sit up straight when they get back here, and then they'll come forward and they'll try to get a little more range of motion, and they'll destabilize and they'll round, okay? I want to keep good posture when I'm forward, come forward at my hip. Maybe I get a tiny bit of flexion, but it's minor with my spine. So I'm here, then I'm driving, and when I get to here, again, same thing. I'm just going to pivot at my hip a little bit, okay? My spine stays neutral, and I'm pivoting at the hip, okay? So I'm here, I lean forward, pivot and pull, arms, my knees come through the window, just like that. I never pull here and then move my knees and then move the handle around my knees, okay? I drive with my knees, I pull with my arms go forward, knees come through the window, I pivot at the hip, and then I drive again, right to here, forward, knees come through the window again, okay? Never like this, okay? And that's, see if I can do it that's probably more realistic of what you'll see. They'll kind of go like this, okay? You want to go forward and then here. All right, so I'm going to talk about my own bad habit here, and you've probably already seen me do it. When I pull, the chain comes straight out, and then when I go back, I want it to go straight in, okay? Straight out and straight in. What I don't want to do, and this is a minor thing, but it's a bad habit that I have, and I see a lot of people do it, is they come out and then they track along, almost like they're actually rowing a boat. So it's not necessarily like the worst thing in the world. It's a minor point, but it's a little detail that might help you get a little bit of a better time on your 500 or your 2K row, excuse me. All right, next point is especially relevant if you're doing a very short race, if you're doing like a 300-meter row for time or a 500 row for time, especially if you're a big, strong, powerful person. You don't want to pull hard. So I get a few rows in here. If you start pulling hard and then you start coming forward real fast, you see people going like this. And then if you actually watch down there, you'll see it move a little bit. okay? The rower should never jump around, okay? If it's moving on the ground, then you're using your energy to actually move the rower, not to pull the handle to move the flywheel to make your meters keep counting, okay? You're wasting energy. So what you want to do instead is you're always here, you pull hard, and then you relax. You pull hard, relax. Pull hard, relax. So if you're doing, if you're doing a 500-meter row, your strokes per minute is probably going to be in the 20s. It might be 25 or 27. You shouldn't be pulling so many reps. If you're pulling hard and then you're coming forward as fast as you can, then your stroke rate is going to be too fast. You might be able to lower your stroke rate by keeping your time, your speed, the exact same, which will over time help you save energy. All right, now that I've recovered. All right, as far as your grip goes, these handles they're not sticky, but they have a lot of friction. They're pretty grippy, so you don't have to grab onto these really hard. It's not like a barbell that's gonna roll out of your hand. It's not going anywhere, so you can be pretty loose and relaxed with your grip. You want your thumbs around it, but you don't need to squeeze at all. In fact, I could probably just be like this, and I could still probably row pretty well, even just with my fingers barely hooked over it and my thumbs kind of just hanging there. You don't want to do that, but that shows that you don't have to squeeze really hard to get a good grip on here. So just wrap your thumbs around and then nice and super loose here. That way especially if you're rowing a longer race, that way your forearms don't fatigue and that doesn't become an issue for you at all, especially if you're rowing rather, a 5K, 6K, 10K. That's a long time to be gripping something constantly, so you don't want to be squeezing barely at all. Just let your hands hang nice and loose. Let your fingers do most of the work. Your thumbs will be wrapped around it, but really your thumbs aren't going to be doing a whole lot. And you can just be hanging on the ends of your fingers. One more thing is where the handle is going to hit on your body, you want to pull it straight back into you. And usually for most people, that's going to hit right at the bottom of their sternum or right at the top of their abs, kind of the first two of your shredded six-pack. It's going to hit right there, okay? So what you don't want to do is pull super low where you're hitting yourself down by the belly button, and you also don't want to pull way up towards your neck like this just to get a longer pull. I see people doing that sometimes. They'll lean way back and they'll pull like this, and they'll try to get like the longest pull they can, which only lasts for so long. You're gonna get tired really quick like that. So you want to pull, again, straight back into you, which usually, if the chain is totally parallel to the ground and it's not going down and it's not going up, then it's probably going to hit you right about right below your sternum, and that's the perfect spot for it to hit. That being said, you don't need to like slam it into you every time. It's just going to come, maybe gently touch, maybe just get like right up to it, but you shouldn't have a bruise on your chest after you get done rowing. Okay, we get this question a lot too. What damper setting should you put it on? There's this 1 to 10 scale on the side of the wheel here. So which setting is going to be the best for you? This isn't resistance, so it doesn't mean that 10 is the most resistance necessarily and 1 is the least resistance necessarily, although there will be a change in resistance and 10 does tend to be a little harder, but that's not really what it exactly is for. The damper lets more air in if it's up on 10 and less air in if it's down on 1. So even though it's more resistance up at the 10, if you're a big, strong person, a very powerful person, if you're a guy that back squats, 400 or 500 pounds and you're 6'2" and you're just a bigger, stronger, more powerful person, and you happen to be in really good shape where you can maintain that power output for a long period of time, then maybe you want to go with a higher number. The shorter the race, the more powerful you're going to be pulling, the higher the number, a higher number will help your meters accumulate faster, okay? If you're going to be doing a much longer workout and or you just happen not to be as big and as strong as some other athletes, if you're a 125-pound female and you back squat 200 pounds as opposed to the 6'2", 400, 500-pound squatter that I just mentioned, then it might be better for you to maybe be down maybe on like a 4 or 5, for a 500 or a 1K or maybe even a little bit lower if you're going longer than that. So overgeneralize, if you're big and strong, you can go higher. If you're not quite as big and strong, then you can go lower. That's the easiest way to think about it. There are tests available to find out your perfect damper setting. We're not going to talk about those right now, but you can use the Googles and find those. All right, that's it for the row series. If you want to see the rest of our Technique WOD videos, you can go to barbellshrugged.com, click on the episodes tab at the top of the page. You get a little pop-down menu, click on Technique WODs. All the videos are in the library. I'll see you another day.
And we're back with Dr. Fred Pesci. Bisci?
Bisci.
I want to say Pesci.
Say it right.
We're here with Joe Pesci.
That's Joe Pesci.
It's the accent. Oh, man. So you started talking about something that was really interesting and talking about people who are outliers, someone who may not exactly take care of themselves, but they still perform at a really high level.
I knew a number of guys like that. I as I said before, I know one guy, he ended up being a world champ, and I remember when he was a young kid, he was about, let me see if I can remember, he was about 16 years old, and he just caught everybody's attention. Then he joined New York Barbell Club, and I can't remember the exact age and dates. By the time he was 18, he was the national champ. But he was in his early 20s, he was the world champ. He was the Russians were developing a great weightlifting team. A lot of those guys were into steroids legally. They went to special schools. They had special training. They used the most advanced training methods, even more advanced than we were using in this country. But I remember I saw him I was competing in a contest, and I was hoping to do pretty well. I certainly wasn't in his category, but he came in and he was legless drunk, so I'm looking at the guy.
And this is weightlifting, like Olympic weight.
Yeah, Olympic weight, press, snatch, and clean and jerk in those days.
Yeah.
So they made a huge pot of coffee. They poured this coffee into the guy. He comes out, and as I said before, he wiped the floor up with everybody. he won, hands down. But as time goes, it didn't take him long, though, where he got to the point where he was getting injured, developing joint problems, because his lifestyle. And his lifestyle, he was a good-looking fella. His lifestyle was just over the top, you know what I'm saying? He was so gifted that he squandered his gift on the wrong type of thing. And he made his mark. He was the world champion. I knew a number of guys that were that way.
Is that the big risk, that if you do push things to chase performance and you think you're getting away with certain things because you feel good and you're lifting good, you're powerful, you got your good endurance, if you're not carefully assessing how you're going about it, you could end up in territory where you can't really get back to healthy. You may go too far, and you realize maybe you've cost yourself too much, and there might be not any going back from that.
Yeah. What happens, a lot of guys develop, joint problems, from some of the bodybuilders from doing wide grips bench presses and bouncing tremendous amounts of weight off their chest. They got all kinds of joint problems. They can't even comb their hair. And a lot of guys who went into powerlifting had developed tremendous injuries, high blood pressure because they were so big, and only God knows what they were really eating. So what happened,
I've heard what some of those guys eat. It's not good.
Well, you should see me eat.
Absolutely. Absolutely. The sad thing about it, because I I still love weightlifting, and I loved it when I was young.
You were a champ, right?
I was a champ, right? And I loved it when I was young. And what made me, I felt bad because I kind of feel like they perverted a wonderful sport. It shouldn't have happened like that, you know, because there were a lot of dedicated old timers that were really one of those type of guys. There was another guy that was an Olympic champ, and he was definitely into the steroids, and there was a picture of him on the back of the news, and he was competing in either the World Championship or the Olympics, and he had clean and jerk over 400 pounds, and he had the weight over his head. He had locked out, and his arm just broke. It snapped. Because of the steroids, he didn't have the skeletal frame to support that kind of weight. He didn't have a much bigger skeletal frame than I did, so the steroids gave him the ability to get the weight up in the air. He couldn't hold it.
He built the muscular strength.
I trained with a guy.
Strength.
Right.
I trained the powerlifter who left college football. He was, this is a big athletic guy. He wasn't using anything then. But he might have been like a 220-pound linebacker at a small university. He could probably squat 600 and bench press 450. He's a strong guy. But he went into powerlifting, and within maybe a year and a half or 2 years, he was up to over 900 squat. He could pull 850. Well, and his bench press was 700 something.
He was into the juice.
He got right there to the peak so quick. I was like, this guy's amazing. I did an incline bench press workout with him one time. We were doing dumbbell presses. We had 150-pound dumbbells. I did like 5 of the most difficult reps I've ever done in my life. I almost blew myself out. He did like 15 or 20 reps with it. And then right about that, he blew out his back. It was over because he didn't have the joint integrity to keep doing that, of course.
Listen, doing dumbbell bench press with 150 pounds, you're a real powerful guy.
Incline presses.
Incline
presses. It was almost a military press.
Oh, that's awesome. In my day, nobody could do that. There wasn't guys that could do that. That started to happen when they started. And plus, they got more knowledge about, how much protein to eat to make you stronger,
What years did you compete?
1954, I was in the Navy. I was United States Navy heavyweight weightlifting champion. So after I came back from Korea.
What weight was that back then? Because the weight classes have changed over the years.
Well, I was 210 pounds, so that was the heavyweight. Now it's like super heavyweights and things like that. I competed as 175 pound, 198 pound, and as a heavyweight. But my best lifts were pretty close to what yours was. 330 clean and jerk, 275. Because of the way I'm built, I was I was quick.
Well, the rules were different, right? The bar couldn't touch your body on the way up?
No, you couldn't touch it.
Yeah, see, the rules are different now.
Vertical,
so for me,
so much harder.
Yeah, what you were doing was harder than what I was doing, what I do.
Oh, it's different now?
Yeah, because the bar can touch your body on the way up now.
Oh, okay.
So what we do now is we pull the bar off the ground, it makes contact at the hip, and we snap underneath it. So
you're talking about the snatch?
Snatch and clean.
Oh, yeah. In the clean and jerk, you were allowed to bring the bar up to your chest, and then you did another dip, and then you put
so it's the same way, but we now hit our thighs and hips
on the pull
on the way up.
Oh, okay.
So it's like a 2-stage pull kind of.
So for those of you that don't know, like the bar used to not be able to touch your body until it got, for your clean and jerk, until it got to your shoulders.
Oh,
and
exactly.
For the snatch, it couldn't touch your body at all.
Exactly.
So the lift was completely different, and that was actually one of the reasons you guys did splits instead of, people didn't squat because do squat, snatch, and clean, and they didn't squat when they lifted a lot of times just because it wasn't, if you're already having to keep the bar away from your body, the split might be more more efficient.
Yeah, I know what you're saying. You're right. But a guy like me, with my type of build, long legs, short torso, long arms, I was able to do a squat clean, but I was in such a unusual position, and being I had my back was strong from doing all those.
So you were able to like split snatch like 260.
Yeah, you're built like a deadlifter.
275
press
split.
and 275 snatch and 330 clean and jerk.
And these are all split lifts, not
split
squat
lifts. Yeah, I couldn't squat. I mean, I could squat, but I'd be leaning way. I couldn't. I can't get up and down where my body's up and down. Guys with short legs, longer upper body are able to squat down and keep their body upright. I can't do it. I was able to squat. And
make sure you're close to the microphone.
Yeah, you're coming off the mic. There
I would have to catch the bar right here on my delts and catch them right here with my arms.
Yeah.
That's fascinating.
We need to like break out some videos. We'll find some Wi-Fi somewhere. We can like look at how the lifts used to be and how they are now.
It's changed quite a bit.
We should share videos. That'd be fun.
For the
did you know Jack LaLanne?
Oh yeah, I know Jack LaLanne.
Yeah, was he a buddy of yours? You hang out with him at all? Train with him?
When I was in California, I worked out in the San Jose Y. He was a class by himself.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, he could do 100. He only weighed 148 pounds. He could do seating dumbbell press with 120-pound dumbbells, I think it was. 110. No, he was
sitting there pressing dumbbells straight overhead, military press style.
Together, not alternate. Together, he could sit there and do them. And he could also, but he could work out for hours.
Mm-hmm.
Hours. A lot of big guys couldn't keep up with him.
It must have been those shoulder pads in his suit that gave him the strength.
He was a strong guy.
Yeah.
Endurance-wise, he was unbelievable. And I'm sorry to say he should have never died. He died when he was 93, 94. He got pneumonia, and somebody that was into health told him not to take the antibiotics in the pneumonia. He should have took the antibiotics. A guy I know in California asked me if I would call him. I said, I don't want to just call him. I don't know if the guy wants to hear from me. I said, if I was you, I would tell him to take the antibiotics. Antibiotics are not poison. In a life-threatening situation, you got to take them, or of course you could end up the way he ended up.
Especially for 93.
Yeah, I mean, antibiotics are something that's commonly over-prescribed, but there's still a time and place.
The medical world does a really good job of treating short-term acute conditions. Like you break your arm or you get pneumonia, you need antibiotics. But chronic conditions is where most people have an issue treating diabetes and heart disease and obesity. Medical world doesn't do a great job of treating those compared to kind of the fitness wellness world. It's a long-term problem that needs a long-term solution. But a short-term problem, like a car accident, needs a short-term solution.
Absolutely.
You got to go in there and fix the arm, like right now.
Well, my personal belief, I work with a lot of doctors. I have doctors that are friends of mine. I believe they should be, where they should be really utilized is emergency medicine, surgery, and chronic disease, should be left. I mean, I work with a lot of people who have chronic disease. And it's not really hard to deal with chronic disease if you understand lifestyle change and how to manipulate a person's chemistry and take their body to clean it up so it's not a good host for bacteria proliferation. I agree with you completely.
You were talking earlier about detox. Could you describe to us what happens during a detox? Because a lot of health professionals throw the word detox around, and sometimes I'm wondering, I don't even know what they mean.
Right, exactly. Well, to be perfectly honest with you, I think detox is the most poorly understood aspect of a person becoming healthy, especially in the natural field. Now, when I talk about detox, I think depends upon what the situation is. If you have a serious chronic disease or an acute disease, and in order to have a chance of your body overcoming it, either with the help of a physician or without a physician, the best way to detox is like these. Let's start from a basic understanding of what a detox is. If you're smoking crack or snorting cocaine, what's the best way to detox?
Stop doing that.
Stop doing it.
I was like, I'm trying to draw on my experience of cocaine use.
Of course, stop doing it. And your body is detoxing 24 hours a day. Once you stop detoxing, your lymph system, your body chemistry is going to be overwhelmed, and you're going to get sick if your body stops. So when you fall behind from your lifestyle, whatever you're doing that's wrong, what you have to do is to, either clean up your diet, and then there's things you could do you can go into fasting. Like I had an extensive background in water fasting. So if you're not eating anything and you're just resting and you're drinking water, your body, within 3 days, your body goes into a detox. In other words, it starts to feed off whatever in your bowels. It starts to feed off the weak and dying cells, the aging cells. Yeah. Then it'll go to like maybe cysts, tumors, and even rents, and it'll start to feed off that. So your body knows how to detoxify itself. You don't have to take some potent drink, and sometimes you can do things like that.
You just sold me. I've never heard anyone describe it that way.
Or you can go on a juice fast. If you go on a juice fast, is very common now. I'm a consultant for a bunch of juice bars in Manhattan, and everybody's doing guys like you could do a 30-day juice fast like it would be nothing.
I don't think so.
Mike would get very grumpy, sir.
I would be grumpy as hell, I think.
But the reason for that is because you'd be detoxing. After 3 or 4 days, for instance, I have a daughter. My daughter's you'd be surprised what you could really do.
Yeah.
So,
I'm wanting to try it now. I'm like, man, when can I do this?
Well, why don't you try it?
He's gonna set a deadline for me.
Are you challenging him, doctor?
No,
I want you to challenge him.
No, I'm telling you right now, the first 24 hours, you're going to be a grump, okay? And you're going to be irritable and everything. Then, once you get past the 30th day, you're going to start and drink 7, 8 juices a day. Don't worry about the protein. Just drink the juices, because your body's going to, through the process of autolysis, the weight you lose is going to be recycled as fat and protein. You have to look up Dr. Ragnar. He's the most brilliant guy.
So am I going to be super lean at the end of this?
No, it's 7 days?
No, after 30 days.
Well, it's 30
I'm trying to time this for the beach.
Well, how much? In 30 days, you probably would lose, if you drank 9 juices a day, you're not going to, if you're drinking juices, you're not going to have to go to bed. You're going to have tremendous amount of energy. You're going to be shocked. After about the 5th day, your energy is going to start going through the roof. So if
you want to try this, Michael?
I'm trying to think about what day I could do this.
In about 30 days, well, why don't you just try a 3-day juice fast the first time? You're going to be grumpy the whole 3 days, though, based on what you told me.
My wife is not liking hearing this.
No,
so what's interesting is the detox word. When anybody says detox, we all go to like it's a taboo word, it's a gimmicky word. You think you're going to push me on some product, but really, isn't it? If we think about what's quote unquote, I'm using my quotation fingers, what's most natural in the vast span of our physiology as a species, there's going to be times where we would catch something, we'd have bounty. There's times when we're going to catch shit, and we're going to have to work that whole time for a long stretch with very little, if a little bit of water, but maybe nothing else for maybe a month. Would you say our physiology is sort of programmed, coded to be triggered by these situations and go into a different gear?
Absolutely.
To me, that is very intuitive.
Listen. Your body knows how to do this intuitively. You're 100% right. There's no mystery to this. You don't even have to have a clue to what you're doing. Your body knows intuitively in its chemistry how to keep you healthy and restore your health. We have to get out of its way. The whole problem is to stop doing what we're doing. We're intoxicating ourselves so much today from the standard American diet. That's why more and more people are getting cancer. Type 2 diabetes is out of control. Arthritis is out of control, and it has a lot to do with our lifestyle. I hear people, if you go on the internet, there's so much confusion about what kind of diet people should be following. You know, you hear people talk about the raw food diet now. There's a macrobiotic diet, the paleo diet, you name it. There's a coconut diet, whatever diet you can think about.
These wackos.
Yeah, but the common denominator in all these diets is to leave out the processed food.
Yeah.
I hear a lot of people that they kind of malign the paleo diet. It's not that bad a diet at all because they're eating. First of all, there is no paleo diet. Paleolithic era was between 10 million years ago and maybe a million years ago. So if you lived up in Alaska, the paleo diet couldn't be the same as what you're eating in Central America or Costa Rica. Up in Alaska, they're probably eating a lot of moose, a lot of bear. They're able to eat some root vegetables. But were they healthy? Yeah, they were healthy because they weren't eating any processed food. They didn't have cell phones. They weren't drinking all that booze and all the stuff and smoking cigars, Cuban cigars like
or
this.
Just go a little bit more to the extreme of that environment, and the whole diet of that culture would be fat, seal fat, a little bit of meat, but they would also be healthy. But again, it's the absence of the other things.
Well, healthy fats are not. Listen, a lot of people are going to get mad at me for saying this. Healthy fats are not the worst thing in the world.
Well, we all are at least on this page.
We're saying that's a good thing.
That's one thing that people are accepting now is true, is that at least we're getting people to eat butter again, doctor. Good high quality butter.
Well, try to give them the raw butter with what's called Factor X. But the Price Pottinger Foundation is very heavy into people eating, plenty of animal protein that's pristine, though, because of what Dr. Pottinger said. But you see, I can take people way beyond that, but I try to meet people where they're at. I know where you guys are coming from. And if you ask me to help you, I could tell you, I know you're not going to, get into anything radical. I know you don't want to get as thin as I am, but you could be supremely healthy and maintain the same type of bills that you have now by eating clean food. If you're eating beef, you got to eat grass-fed beef. Because it's got all the hormones, the pesticides, the chemicals, plus the urea. Whenever you're eating, you know what urea is. You know what what's going on. So you got to try to eat as clean as you possibly can, no matter what you're eating. When I was in Australia, we were talking to some Aborigines. They lived on grubs
which is very good for you, right?
Yeah, it was much better than eating cold cuts from the local deli in downtown Manhattan.
Cheaper.
No doubt about that.
Sure.
So even though you're kind of a raw foods guy now, when you consult with athletes, MMA fighters, or even CrossFit athletes, you don't push just raw foods on them necessarily.
Not.
It depends on what they want.
I tell them, here's what I tell them. If you think you got cancer, and a doc tells you got cancer, or you got some serious, like MS or something real serious, they're not going to try to get them to come in this direction because you really can help people. It's radical, but but it's very, very therapeutic. It's definitely the ultimate form of detox while you're eating food, and your body detoxes naturally. So, and of course, there's things that you could do. You could get into an infrared sauna. You can use a hyperbaric chamber. Guys that work out should be able to avail themselves to a low-pressure hyperbaric chamber because it's absolutely amazing. So
never done that.
Yeah,
You don't know anything about that?
No, I've got a couple of friends that have played around with it, but I personally have not.
I've never used it.
Well, a lot of professional athletes have low-pressure hyperbaric chambers in their house.
I hear about it for train low or sleep like in a hyperbaric chamber where the pressure's lower, so you can hopefully bump up your red blood cell count. So when you're running, you have more ability to transfer oxygen and whatnot for endurance sports. But you're referring to that for
recovery,
for health.
You're talking about the opposite. You're talking about
the
pumping
opposite.
in. Yeah, you're talking about
Your
increasing
oxygen
the oxygen.
You're in there with oxygen under pressure.
Yeah.
It helps
Okay.
you. I used to work with guys that one guy in particular was a international Ironman triathlete star and used the hyperbaric chamber on him for recovery, and he recovered in almost 2 days rather than taking a week or two.
Yeah, a lot of pro football teams will have a couple hyperbaric chambers.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and they'll throw the guy, especially if they have injuries. They throw them in there, and the injuries happen real fast. It's just increased partial pressure of oxygen, and
very rapid recovery. There was a guy that played football. I think it was for Philadelphia, and he broke his ankle. And 6 weeks before the Super Bowl, you remember his name, Rory? Yeah. So what happened? They said he could never play in the Super Bowl, but he went out and bought. Somebody got him a low pressure hyperbaric chamber. He healed and he played in the Super Bowl, and he played well. So there's so much to all this,
Let's go get our juice, Mike.
It kind of goes both ways. Yeah.
Let's drink some juice and get in the chamber. What do you say?
Yeah, absolutely. Have you ever heard of CrossFit?
Oh
Did
yeah.
you pay much attention to it?
Yeah. I don't know that much about it, but I've certainly heard of it.
What
yeah.
are your general thoughts about it? Since we have a lot of CrossFitters that watch this show, so you might want to watch.
You're talking about
Say something
You're talking about CrossFit training, right?
Yeah, CrossFit training.
Sure.
Diversifying your exercises.
Yeah.
Absolutely, I'm all for it 100%.
Yeah.
I mean, I did. I used to ride a bike, and I used to run, and do a lot of stretching. Yeah, the more diversified your exercise, you can create better balance, less chance of injuries.
Yeah.
Yeah, variety is generally a good thing.
Oh, absolutely.
So you eat a raw diet. What exactly does that mean? I mean, I know some people are raw vegan. I know some people are raw as in like I've heard of people going just eating raw beef. And
yeah, there's some people. There's a guy in California advocates people eat raw meat. That's not for me. It's not necessary. You know what I'm saying? My diet consists of fruits, vegetables, nuts, seeds, juices, smoothies, and some of it is actually delicious. People don't realize. I'm a consultant for a juice bar in Manhattan called Juice Press. If you ever went in there and ate the food, you could sit down and eat a cheesecake, and it's really it's actually
Twist my arm, doctor.
It's really good.
It's called Juice Press.
Juice Press, yeah.
Juice
There's
Press.
like 20-something stores in Manhattan.
you don't eat any meat?
No, I don't eat meat.
How long have you not had meat for?
About 50 years. I haven't eaten any cooked food at all. 0 in 50 years. My life.
Holy shit!
Or do you have like a cheat every once in a while? Like, all right,
Never.
I'm gonna give in.
Never. I can't. See, that's what people don't realize. You can't, because if I ate something that I normally not eating, I would feel. If I ate a piece of meat, about an hour or two, you'd probably have to call an ambulance, because my body has stopped.
You just don't produce the enzymes necessary to digest that.
I have no desire to either. Although when I was young, I used to love to eat a steak or something like that.
So logistically, do you bring most of your food with you when you travel, or when you go to a restaurant, do you just order off the menu and just tell them what to bring you?
Well,
how does that work? Or you just go to the grocery store and just buy some stuff and call it good because you don't have to cook it?
No. What I do when we travel, Rory and I, Dr. Rory Dean, that works for me, we usually bring our own food. We have a cooler. We bring our own food. And unless I'm coming to a place, a lot of places I go to, speaking up, that's what they're feeding people. So I really don't have trouble eating, because if it's not available, I don't eat. I'll go someplace and buy it if I have to. I'll go buy something that's not organic. I'll go to a supermarket. But we always manage. It's not a big problem. And believe it or not, as bizarre as it sounds, some of the way the food is prepared and some of the type of dishes that we eat, it really is delicious. It's like eating dessert all the time. But you have to be used to it. You have to have that mindset to do it. And plus, with me now, it's a question of survival. Here I am at 85. If I start eating some of this other stuff, I won't be around very long, to be perfectly honest with you. So I feel wonderful at this point in my life. I feel as good as I did when I was in my 50s. And I survived a very serious near-death situation about 1.5 years ago, and not too many people thought I was going to survive or bounce back. I'm ready to go.
Hell yeah.
I bounced back.
Care to share what that event was?
What?
Do you care to share what that event was?
I have no problem. What happened is I had never been sick. I don't remember being sick, and I had some dental work done. I didn't realize I have a very small throat,
Mm-hmm.
So what happened, because I was so busy, I wasn't masticating my food as well as I should, and some food got into my airway, and it went down into my lung. The airway is in the front, your esophagus is right behind it, right?
Mm-hmm.
And there's a sphincter here called the glottis, and when you chew your food, your tongue goes into your roof of your mouth. Mm-hmm. It's an automatic reflex, and it just pushes it over the glottis, and the epiglottis slides over and closes it.
Right.
It wasn't working for me. It went in there, right?
Oh,
and I was gulping the food down. I wasn't chewing it down. It went into my lungs, and I started to cough, and the cough got more and more violent as time went on. And finally, I said, something radically wrong. I knew. So I went to a local doctor who was... he wasn't the sharpest knife in the drawer, I come to realize.
It's a bad sign when your life's on the line.
So he said I had athletically induced asthma. I said, listen, doctor, I don't have asthma. I think I have pneumonia here, So he says, no, you don't have it. I don't know how they made that mistake. They gave me an x-ray, and I went home. I got sicker. Mm-hmm. Then a friend of mine wanted me to go see a doctor in the city. I went seeing a doctor, and as soon as he looked at me, he said, I want you to go see a pulmonologist at Mount Sinai Hospital. Mm-hmm. It was a woman. I went to see her. She gave me an x-ray, and she says, you have to go into a hospital immediately. I said, can't you give me, because I never was in a hospital, can't you give me antibiotics? I'll go home. She said, no, you can't do that. So I went into the hospital, and what happened is that they started to treat me. They gave me antibiotics, which I never had, which ended up making me real sick. My legs swelled up. I had all kinds of problems. And they sent me home. And when I went home, I got progressively worse because I was trying to eat some food. And every time I put food in my mouth, I would go like this to cough, and the food was going into my airway.
Oh, shit.
Wow.
So then I got to the point where I knew I was dying. So I told my wife, I said, listen, I got to go back into the hospital. Well, my whole family was shocked because they know I wouldn't do that unless something was radically wrong.
Right.
So I went back into the hospital. They put me in the critical care unit. The first day I was in there, the guy next to me died. They were coming in, they were looking at me, and I know the way they were looking at me, it wasn't really that good.
Like the crows are circling.
Huh?
The crows were trying to circle you.
Yeah, right. So what happened, I ran into one doctor, and he come in, he said, can I talk to you? I want to come in. I have to come in the early in the morning, about 4 o'clock. I said, okay, I'll be awake. He come in, and he says, I have a feeling you have aspirational pneumonia. Bingo. As soon as he said that, I knew he was right. I knew exactly that the guy was right. So what they did is, in order to take that test, they said they made me wait 7 days. I didn't eat. I had no food, and they wouldn't let me drink water, chew ice, which was kind of ridiculous. I couldn't even get into any intravenous fluids because my legs had swollen up. So I did that. I think that's called a dry fast. There's a lot of Russian people. I've done some dry fasting. I thought they knew what they were doing. They would just they didn't have a time slot to put me in, and they didn't want me to eat in between. Why, I don't really know. So what happened is that that's what I had. I had aspirational pneumonia. They put me on massive amounts of intravenous antibiotics, which really took its toll on me. And I went home, and I recovered from the pneumonia quickly. But what was done, I had to I did a bronchoscopy, and they gave me general anesthesia, which did affect my short-term memory and had some real issues. So
you survived, man.
I survived, yeah. I was really lucky. But that's the only time I've ever really been sick, and I bounced back. I feel good. I'm back into working out again and everything,
It sounds like
how do you work out these days? You're back into working out?
Yes, I'm back into working out. What I do is I do Qigong. And like Rory does it too. He's much better at it than I do. I am. So
that was the martial art you talked about earlier.
Martial arts, right. So I get up in the morning. I do sit-ups. I do all kinds, and I have some light dumbbells that I work out with. I do my Qigong, and then I live in an area in Staten Island. There's a lot of pits and a lot of hills up there. So what I eat, some days I run. I do repeats, like up the hills, run back and forth.
You run hill sprints in the morning?
Pardon me?
You run hill sprints?
Not every day. Some days I walk. It depends upon how I feel. I'm getting stronger now, so I keep telling Rory I plan on getting back to some heavy running. But
This is amazing attitude. Man.
That's badass, by the way.
Now, so
I want to run hill sprints at 85. That's awesome.
I could still sprint though. I could still run. You know what? You know what affected me the most being in the hospital though? My equilibrium is off.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, so it's coming back, but I don't know what.
So balance is a little tough.
Yeah. It's it's harder for me to come down a staircase than to go up it. Because when I go down, but it's getting better. So if that gets better, I'm going to get into a lot more stuff. Not
to be a lesson about. He just said, "I'm 85. I'm looking forward to getting stronger."
This is incredible. Yeah. Anyone who wants to knock anything about like raw diet or anything, I mean, you've been doing it for a long time. You look great.
You can't knock it. People that knock it haven't experienced. If they listen, I'm more than willing to say it's not for everybody. In fact, it might be for just people that are really, striving for the highest ideals in everything. And that's my philosophy is not to settle for mediocrity in anything I do. So that was one of the reasons.
Man, this guy's so amazing.
That's one of the reasons I got into eating a raw food diet. And in the beginning, as I told you before, I thought I shot myself in the foot. But now, am I glad I did it? Yes, I believe that somebody that knows how to do an all raw diet, that gets into it, I believe you have a very good chance of living 100 or beyond. So that's what I always kid. I always tell people I'm kind of living in the death zone now because this is where a lot of people die, So I want to see what a lot of people are waiting, and I'm waiting to see what's going to happen to me. But what I'm really doing is I tell my grandson, what I'm doing is I'm planning for the next 30 years. I want to watch him grow up more. So I'm kidding, of course, but whatever happens.
Why not?
Yeah.
I don't put anything past you, sir.
Yeah.
I think you could definitely make it.
Listen, I have an attitude of gratitude. After what happened to me, that was kind of a humbling experience because I wouldn't say I was cocky. I'm not that type of a person. But I always figured, listen, I'm not going to get sick. Well, when that happened to me, and when I went through that experience, and when I was laying in that bed, I said to myself, oh, boy, this is going to be a close call. But, I got a lot of faith in God, and I hung right in there. I wasn't scared.
A lot of people, sir, would have not had this mindset and would have not made it out of that bed. Most of people would not have made it out of that bed. Probably just because they probably would see the writing on the wall, they'd probably give up.
I don't give up. I'm not the type of guy to give up.
Well.
No, I everything I do, I don't give. I just don't. It's not my nature. I ran through a marathon once. It was 10 below zero without the wind chill factor. Got severe frostbite. And the state trooper comes by and says, "Hey, listen, you better get in the car." He says, "Nobody's on the road anymore." So I said, "How far is the finish line?" He said, "About 4 miles." I said, I'm going to make it. And I made it. I could have given up. My ear had very bad frostbite. It was leaking. It was stuffed my nose. It was all black here. I had a bullseye around my nose. And when I went home, my wife says, is that you? What happened to you?
Wow.
Damn.
I'm not going to give up.
every time I come up to Vermont and hang out with Joe DeSena's friends, I feel like a pussy. Oh, that's amazing. Do you have a book you want to promote?
Yeah, I have. Yeah, my book here, Eat Your Way, Your Healthy Journey.
Can we have a copy of this book, sir? Because I'm reading this shit on the way.
Okay, that's for you. That's for you.
Thank you.
Your healthy.
Hard to say no when you ask them in front of everyone on the show.
No, I wouldn't say no. Your Healthy Journey. You read that book. You guys should read that book.
Yeah.
You can create your own diet. You can create your own diet and keep doing what you're doing and maintain your same size, the same amount of strength, and little by little, kind of prepare yourself for later on in life. Don't forget, you're all young guys now. And I remember when I was, I don't know how old you are. How old are you?
31.
34.
Okay, 34. You're all young. How old are you?
32.
32. Okay, listen, to be honest with you, there's an arrogance in youth. When I was young, I thought I was indestructible. But as you grow older, you realize, and you see people die. You see people die. I've seen people die. You realize we are not indestructible. So the key is you want to make yourself so you give yourself your best chance to have a long life, but not so much to live a long life, to have a long life with quality. To not be, I know guys that are younger than I am are walking with walkers. That's not for me. So the key is to prepare yourself by cleaning up your diet as much as you possibly can, and still, avoid the processed food if you can, and everything else could be the same, just clean.
Mm-hmm.
Try to eat grass-fed beef. Try not to eat, whatever you're eating, and you'll see. And even as good as if you do it, you leave out all the processed food, you'll go into a detox. Trust me, you really will.
That's awesome.
I think you've won
Thanks for
some
sharing that
fans
with
here
us.
today.
This has been fantastic.
Can I ask one more question? This man?
Sure.
For all the people who will listen to this and they have aspirations to get strong, like we talked about the limits they should put, be smart about it. For people who want to get strong, they're going to do it the right way. What's your best advice for somebody who's getting the CrossFit? Maybe they're early 20s, maybe they're going to try to compete in weightlifting, but the mindset may be a little raw and new, and they might not know how about going about it. What is the mindset, in your view, to be as strong as possible in the best possible way?
Well, is to I would say to be as healthy as you possibly can too. Okay, is to clean up your diet, right? Make sure, don't be afraid of eating fruits and vegetables. Whatever the amount of protein, the animal protein, or whatever source of protein, you can get plenty of good plant proteins that'll promote growth too. Try to make it about 10% more than you need to maintain your body weight. Remember, protein and fat is not as good a source of fuel as carbohydrates. So when you're eating just basically protein, that's why years ago people just ate protein and drank water. They got so ripped, but some of them would pass out. Guys actually passed out.
Mm-hmm.
I remember once a guy, I won't tell you who it was because he's still alive, he actually passed out on that type of a diet just to get ripped. They were preparing for bodybuilding contests. So what I would recommend for a guy like that is to clean up your diet, eat the amount of protein, whether from a vegan source or an animal source, to just maybe 10% more, so you're gaining muscle. You're not going to have an excess of protein, and some of it's going to be converted to body fat. You don't want to do that either. So clean up your diet, eat fruits, vegetables, animal proteins. You don't even need the grains,
Should we just stick to heavy barbells and forget all the silliness? Go get a thick barbell with lead shot in the ends, or dig a hole in our backyard and quit fucking around these gyms, doctor?
I don't think you're going to see those kind of... I trained in a gym that they didn't even have an Olympic barbell set. This was many years ago, and they had all the barbells were like giant kettlebells. They had very thick handles. They didn't have a ball-bearing swivel on it. You had to turn it. You have to have a grip of like a vice grip. You had to actually turn it over, and you would load the bells at the end of the barbell and the kettlebells. You had to load them, but they had buckshot. They had a big thing of buckshot and sand. You load it, and you did your exercise with that.
Nothing fancy is required, folks. If you're worried about what equipment you have or what you're lacking, and you're using that as an excuse to be weak or to have results you're not happy with, you're kind of lying to yourself, huh?
Yeah, I remember guys that did chins and dips and push-ups had fabulous business. You do a lot of wide grip chins, underhand, overhand chins, do high repetition push-ups, do jumping squats, parallel bar dips. You're going to have a fabulous body.
We love you.
Yeah.
We're our new favorite friend, man.
And you'll be strong.
That's
there was
great.
a guy named Marvin Eden. He used to do parallel bar dips with 300 pounds strapped to his waist.
Oh my God.
Yeah,
He's kind of strong.
I used to strap weights and do dips to my waist. I used to love to do all that type of stuff.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
The only problem is you could damage your front deltoids. You went too far. You went down. You shouldn't really go down. Your upper arms were below parallel. A lot of guys used to go all the way down to get a stretch for their pecs. What they were doing, they weren't stretching their pecs. They were tearing their front deltoid muscles.
Mm.
But there was a lot of guys that were... I don't think there's... I mean, from what I hear from the younger guys like yourself today, there's guys out there... I never heard of anybody doing bench press with 600-700 pounds. There was nobody could do that in those days.
Mm-hmm.
I remember the world's record was held by a guy by the name of Bob McCune. Don't ask me what year. I don't remember. But it was about 400 pounds. That was the world's record. So today, a lot of college guys are doing that, repetitions in the gym.
Well, we only know it's possible because guys like you and older lifters paved the way, and just like the 4-minute mile with Roger Bannister, they made it a thing you could achieve. Like, this guy's doing that. I could do that. He's nothing special. I could bench more than this guy. And that goes the same in a clean and jerk and a snatch. It just started escalating. I think as long as we keep that mindset to push our limits, but we don't do anything that we know is going to be excessive and compromise our health, I think we've got a good strategy.
Well, a lot of barriers, I think, are mental. I think a lot of it is mind. Somebody tells you, listen, nobody in the world could lift 400 pounds. can't be done. I think mentally, when you start to you're doing something, you're approaching 400 pounds, I think you're not bringing all the quick twitch muscles into play because subconsciously or unconsciously, you're trained to think that you're reaching a barrier that you can't suppress. Yeah. So if you're not bringing enough quick twitch muscles into play, you're not going to be that strong. Mm-hmm. People just don't realize that. And that's why I remember...
You remind me of John Welborn's quote.
Well, I remember when I was lifting, you're not going to laugh. A lot of guys used to do a lot of breathing, Mm-hmm. And when I used to get over that bar and I was getting ready to do a snatch or a clean and jerk or anything I was doing, I would do a lot of breathing. Mm-hmm. And I knew people say, what good is that? They thought it was a show. What you're really doing when you do that, you're actually going into the fight or flight response. You're pumping out adrenaline. So if you do it enough, you're going to be that much stronger because you're going to be secreting adrenaline. You're in a fight or flight response. When in a fight or flight response, you can be unbelievably strong. Yeah. And breathing, same thing in the martial arts. When you know how to breathe, you'll be surprised if you're breathing correctly and you have the energy, the power you can have. Even a thin guy can have immense power.
Doug, you won't let him punch you in the stomach. Let him punch you in the stomach.
The opening of the show.
So make sure to check out Your Healthy Journey. It's a book you wrote.
Yes.
And do you have a website that people should check out?
What's the website?
Leave it out. Leave it out?
Any doubt? Uh-huh. Leave it out.
Any doubt, leave it out.
And you can buy the book on anydoubtleaveitout.com.
Yes, yep.
Check it out, folks.
We'll make sure to share all this.
Make sure you head over to barbellshrugged.com, sign up for the newsletter, and we'll notify you anytime we post these things.
Sir, it was an honor. Thank you very much.
For
it was
us.
a lot of fun. I enjoyed myself. It brings back a lot of memories. Thanks for having me on.
We're going to come see him, man. Do this again.
Oh, yeah.
We're going to come and train with you.
Yeah, absolutely.
You bet. Thanks, Fred.
To learn more about how you can support the show, go to barbellshrugged.com and sign up for the newsletter.